Beautiful people, hello, it is Alexander here, and basically, I'm making this video because I want to talk about the entire concept of living in a 5D reality. This is a very dear topic to my heart, and I'm going to explain why. I'm going to say a few months ago, I met someone who was very interesting in my life, and it caused a great, tremendously strong heart chakra opening for myself. But it wasn't so much that I, felt love for this person as much as I started feeling love for almost the entire world, the entire planet, the entire universe, all beings, anywhere, everywhere. And as a result, what happened was I started seeing things into the future. I started, at first they were just thoughts, premonitions, visions, this, that, whatever it is that we might want to call it. But what ended up happening was I got to this point where I started living in the future so much that it became very integrated in me. And what I mean by that, specifically living in the future is there are going to be there are certain principles which we live by. There are certain collective agreements, collective understandings about how our society works right now, which are going to be completely different, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And basically what's happening is, I'd mentioned before in an earlier video how our society is moving up from a 3D existence, kind of 4D to 5D and, higher dimensions and whatnot. But really what it is it's not so much that these, one way of looking at it is saying that our reality is moving up from 3D or 4D to 5D to 6D to all these moving from lower dimension to higher dimension is actually not, in my opinion, the proper way to describe things. And here's specifically the way that I see it. It's not so much that the dimensions or our current existing reality is moving up per se, but it's rather that the energy from these higher dimensions is finally moving down and integrating itself into these lower dimensions and really becoming a part of who, what, why, when, where the entire fabric of the society works. So one thing I noticed is that if you look at the way that organic food, there are all these trends which are promoting themselves towards greater health, greater longevity. There are all these people who are wanting to start movements, eco-friendly movements, green movements. We live in an age where we have Tesla, so we have electric cars and whatnot. These are what we would call innovations. These are directions that we're headed towards. These are technological breakthroughs. These are just trends which we're moving towards because we're feeling inspired to do it. If you ask someone, hey, why, ask Elon Musk, hey, why did you invent the electric car? He'll say, well, I wanted to save the world from basically destroying itself. That would be his answer. He wrote it, in his biography. He even said that. It's just, everyone's getting these inspirations from what we would call higher sources. And it's not so much that we have to bring ourselves up to these higher levels. Because here's the funny thing. We've been taught that, we have to do these things to improve ourselves, to make ourselves better, to do this, to do that, to, even the concept of raising our vibration can sometimes be misconstrued in a way where it makes us feel as if though we're inadequate as we are, and we need to do something in order to make ourselves better. Really what it comes down to being is, it's not so much us moving up, really up the scale, but rather if there's, if we want to use the concept of scales and whatnot, but in this case it would be more accurate to use a concept that I enjoy calling energy flow. It's not so much that we have to increase our energy flow so that we become these superhuman selves and we're all powerful and we're all great and almighty, but rather it's more along the lines of we simply have to allow these higher energies to integrate themselves into our life. And here's specifically what I mean by it. the best way that we can do that is by getting in touch with ourselves. One of the ways that I've been doing that for myself is literally, that little voice that we have in our heads. I've been listening to mine quite a bit. I've been allowing myself to daydream about the future. And it's not so much what other people are talking about, what the future could be, but rather I'm looking into myself to see what my gifts and talents for the world are, what I want to contribute, what I feel as if though the world needs to, whenever I say needs, it's, whatever I feel the direction of the world should head towards. And basically, as I've been getting in touch with my own inner vision, the world around me has shifted so that people who are in alignment with my vision start manifesting themselves in my life, so that events which are in alignment with my vision start happening synchronistically and very easily and very flowily. Everything is happening with the flow right now as I align myself with these higher energies. Now, one of the best things on top of this too is there's no, I say no final dimension, because I think that there's a concept that maybe there's only 5 or 7 or 9 or 12 dimensions. No, it keeps going up and up and up. And as we start exploring these higher dimensions, and as we start really, the best way I can put it is allowing ourselves to not just explore these dimensions, but to really almost live in these dimensions. As we start to live in these dimensions, and the way that we live in these dimensions is by carrying the energy, by allowing that energy to express through us at all time. One of the best ways that we can do that I've found is, meditation is a really good way, but I've been doing this thing called, it's a modality, it's a technique called the Yin method. And what it does is it talks about using something called your midline, which is the middle part of your body, which separates the left from the right, but specifically getting in touch with your spinal cord. So basically the thing that holds up your head, to the bottom of your spine. By getting in, what I've noticed is that sometimes I can ask a question, and by getting in touch with the spinal cord area of myself, or the midline area, I'm able to receive an answer more clearly because I'm coming from a place of what I would call neutrality. And so I'll ask, lately I've been doing, I guess we could say healing, or, really it's more along the lines of clearing sessions, helping people clear their blocks and whatnot. And what will happen is, I will pose a question to the universe, and I will focus, on my spinal cord to receive an answer. Now, the way that I check to see if this answer is correct or not, or really it's more along the lines of finding the right answer, feeling the right answer. The way that I can feel if something is correct for me or not is by checking in with my, what I would call my spinal cord. And whenever I do this, what ends up happening is, if this is something which is going to, further my, let's say that I'm asking the universe, should I advance on this career path? Should I, pursue this business opportunity? In my case, should I do this? Should I make this business choice or that business choice? What I'll do is I will literally put those two business choices in front of myself, or in my mind, but really in my intuition, and I'll ask, I will think about business choice number 1, and then I'll go check with my spinal cord. And the way that I know whether it is helping me, or whether this would be something that's beneficial for me, or whether this is something that would be detrimental for me, is I ultimately get to this point where, if it's a good thing, if it's something that's going to help me, I feel good. But more specifically with the spinal cord analogy is, I get to this point where there's almost no change. If anything, it gets a little bit lighter. I feel a little bit more energized. I feel a little bit more freer, a little bit higher vibration, if we want to put that. But whenever there's a choice which would cause what I call weakness, but something that's detrimental to our future, detrimental to our life, what happens is, it will cause the spinal cord to weaken in a way. And the way that translates sometimes into a physical feeling in the spinal cord is that you will end up getting to this point where, you think, sometimes there are certain people, certain things that you think about doing, and they really do weaken you. And you can feel this in your spinal cord, because what will happen is you will feel as if though you lose tension in your spinal cord. And what that can be is, it feels as if though your spinal cord kind of goes, or you're like, and it's just like, you just go down a little bit in energy, because it's not so much that it's draining you, that's one way of looking at it, but rather it's just not supporting, things that drain you are just, things that really just don't support your highest well-being, your highest growth, your highest good. The whole thing about living in the 5D and living into these, integrating these higher dimensional realities into these, what we could call lower dimensional realities, or 3D reality, linear reality, whatever it is that we want to call it. Ultimately and truly, it's just, 3D is just a different name for our physical existence, the existence that we live on the physical plane with our physical body and physical structures. The way that we integrate these higher dimensions and higher realities with our physical reality, our physical existence, is where, as we get to this point where we choose our highest and best good above all things, meaning we place our highest and best good, the things that only strengthen us, or the things that only uplift us, or the things that bring us up, for the highest and best good, over all these things which weaken us, or which make us lose spiritual tension, which make us lose our, you could say spiritual juice, spiritual energy. But whenever we choose things which better us, which enliven us, which enrich our lives, which not just foster our spirituality, not just help it grow, but whenever we do these things which ultimately we make a very, very, very conscious choice to choose to do these things which make us better people, which make us more spiritual, if we want to put it that way. But whenever we choose to almost live in the light, to live in love in every single thing it is that we do, then we are ultimately not just taking the 5D realities, not just taking the 60, 70, 80, 90, 12, whatever other dimensions and realities that we have, but whenever we make a choice to live in our hearts and live as love, live in the light, whenever we make those choices, what happens is we're automatically integrating those higher energies, higher vibrational sources of energies, higher dimensions, whatever it is that we want to call them. We're integrating them into our life in such an easy, effortless way. And, one way that we can do that is by, it's sometimes been called follow your bliss, or follow what makes you happy, follow your heart. By doing these things, these little, we could call them truisms that we have in our society, but by doing these things which are really more heart-centered and more light-centered, if we want to call it that, by doing these things and ultimately integrating them into our experience, we're going to increase our intuition naturally. We're going to increase our perception. It's going to sharpen. It's going to be more, we're going to perceive things in a faster way, in a quicker way, in an easier way. Everything is going to be crystal clear. We're going to have crystal clear clarity. We're going to have a tremendous amount of not just depth in the way that we see things, but also sometimes the way that we hear things, the way that we think things. We're going to be moving more, society is going to be moving less from an individual mind to more of a collective mind, but not necessarily follow the herd mentality, or, this herd mentality that we've been used to with, whenever we think about collective mentality, but rather it's going to be, we're going to move from instead of it's an ego-based society, or me, it's all about me, I got to get mine, and that's it. Instead of moving from that type of society, really what we're going to be doing is moving towards a society which is not just about the highest good for a certain amount of people, but really the highest good for all the people on the planet, all the sentient beings in the universe, all beings in the universe, all beings in the multiverse. And once we get to that point, that's really, that's kind of the way that we start integrating the higher dimensional realities into our physical existence. Now, the way that we do that is by, I mentioned the thing about the spinal cord, but really ultimately and truly what it is just simply getting in touch with yourself, simply doing whatever it is that, you can do to almost strengthen yourself, strengthen your spirit, enliven your spirit, enrich your spirit, foster growth for yourself, spiritual growth, mental growth, physical growth, emotional growth, allowing people who do not serve your highest good to leave your existence without you having to feel any sense of obligation, any sense of responsibility, any sense of debt, meaning, I owe that person, or and hey, in some cases it can be even feeling any sense of loyalty, as if though we have to save this person or save this individual. Sometimes, we have these, whenever we talk about the concept of karma or past lives or this or that, sometimes soul contracts, sometimes the things that we get inspired to do in our reality are simply because we had previous karma, we had previous soul contracts, we had past lives which are playing themselves out into this physical existence, this physical reality. And really, we didn't come here to play the game in the way that we used to. We didn't come here to do the things that we used to do in past lives or past existences or whatnot. We really came here to step into our light, to become conscious, and to be, not just be the light, but share our light with others, and help others become light in themselves and everything it is that they do. And the way that we do that is by choosing to step into love. And the way that we choose to step into love is by opening our own hearts. The way that we open our own hearts, just is really getting in touch with ourselves. And this is kind of like A goes to B, B goes to C, C goes to D. But the way that we get in touch with ourselves is simply by acknowledging the fact that, one, you are perfect, whole, and complete as you are already. And two, you are a multi-dimensional being who exists on multiple realms, multiple universes, it's not even just past, present, or future, but really you are all things at all places at all time. So as we treat, even in the Bible it says, treat your neighbor as yourself. As you treat your neighbor, which could actually be representative of anything. Like even this water bottle, I could treat it as myself, treating it with love, treating it with respect, treating it with compassion. And sometimes compassion is not necessarily the love that we've been conditioned to feel, or the old habit pattern behaviors that we have been trained to feel through previous conditioning. Simply, it's getting in touch with what it is that we feel in our heart is right, and choosing to do those things regardless of whether we have done them in the past, regardless of whether it is what we would call sometimes socially acceptable, or our perception of what we would call socially acceptable. But I'm not saying go be crazy and go do crazy stuff. It's more along the lines of, there are people who are living on this reality, in this existence, on this physical plane, but they're living in a different world. And what I mean by that is this: they're living in a world where there's full compassion, full love, full light, full everything. And as these people, you can see them because they're people who shine. They shine a little bit more brightly than others. You get around them and you're like, oh, I feel so peaceful. I feel so calm around this person. I feel so good whenever I'm around this person. There are certain individuals on this planet who are not just living in these 5 or 6 or 7 or 7+ D realities or dimensions, but really they've integrated this concept of being light, being love, being loving, being compassionate in all things that they do, in all things that they think, in all things that they are. And really, as we integrate these higher feelings of love into our day-to-day existence, we really get to this point where we end up creating a reality which just simply mirrors the inner reality it is that we have. So really, ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, it's not so much that we have to change anything on our external reality in order to become higher vibrational or become more multidimensional. The thing about it is that it's not so much us rising up to these levels, but simply allowing these levels to flow into us, to flow through that which we are. Sometimes flow through our hearts, flow through our actions, flow through our thoughts, flow through our minds, flow through the way it is that we treat people, flow through the way it is that that we spend our time, instead of spending our time doing things that do not serve us, that make us miserable, that make us feel feelings of fear, dread, apathy, grief. We focus our time on things that make us feel joyful, loving, accepting, peaceful, happy, blissful, loving, and full of love, all these wonderful things. As we start aligning ourselves to what we could call our highest and best good, the things that make us feel good in the highest way possible. See what I did there? By focusing on these things, which really make us feel, the highest emotions it is that we can possibly feel, we're going to get to this point where our world becomes a mirror of simply what is inside ourselves. If we are all feeling bliss, joy, happiness, compassion, and love, our society will automatically reflect these things easily, effortlessly, without us really having to do anything. Now, for those of you who are asking, well, what do I do right now? How do I get to that point? There's actually, here's the funny thing. There's actually nothing to do, and there's no getting to that point. Here's the thing. You are already at that point. You are already at that point. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to be. There's nothing to do, because you are that which you are already. Now, I'm not saying that there are going to not be any changes that you may make in your habits, but more along the lines, it's allowing, instead of trying to force yourself to change, instead of trying to do what other people are doing because they said it and they're right, they're a spiritual guru and they said to do this, so I'm going to do that because this religion said, or that person said, or this book said, or this biblical text or religious text said. It's more along the lines of simply doing what it is that you feel inspired and you feel called to do, and allowing yourself to check in with yourself to see if that's what you should be doing. If it feels good, if it increases, with the whole thing about the spinal cord, if it makes you feel a little bit lighter, if it feels strong inside yourself, then great, do it. If it makes you feel weak inside yourself, if it dampens your spirit, if it dampens your aliveness, if it in any way detracts or lessens your spirit, your aliveness, your almost like a life essence, if we want to put it that way. If it does those things, ultimately what happens is, we just shouldn't. You just shouldn't do it. You just shouldn't do it. That's it. The end. Done. Peace. But guys, this is Alexander, and I just wanted to give a lovely video about what I am thinking and feeling about things right now, and hopefully that helps you guys out. But cheers. Any questions? Just hit me up. Subscribe, like, dislike, no like, whatever it is that you want to do. But this is the kind of the best way that I can put it is I'm going to be making a lot more videos lately, in the upcoming future, just because I've been really more inspired to share what it is that I'm thinking and feeling with the rest of the world. So yeah, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up. But cheers, or leave a comment, subscribe, hit me up on Facebook, whatever it is that you guys want to do. Cheers, have fun, bye bye.